Hi, Anna. I'm Doug.
Nice to meet you.
Because you guys have met, yeah?
Yes. Welcome to the Radio Juxtapoz podcast. This is kind of how we do it. It's from Skype, live from San Francisco and London.
Wait, why are you in a storage
global world?
Why am I in a... Because we share an office with Thrasher, and Thrasher, this is kind of like the gifting area where they give stuff away to friends, and this is the quietest spot to record.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. And by the way, you guys are living casual life. I had to get here by 7:30 this morning to kind of get prepped, so...
That is the second time he's brought that up in the last 3 minutes, I'd just like to say. So he's milking that one for all it's worth.
God damn it.
Yeah. Anna, where are you then?
I'm in Brooklyn right now at my house. Yeah, I woke up maybe 10 minutes ago.
So is this a transitional place that you're in, or is this just how you live your life?
Wait, what do you mean? Oh, you mean by the campuses in the back?
Yeah.
No, I just haven't gotten my shit together the past month or so. I just got back a couple weeks ago from LA. So, yeah, I should get my things organized, but I haven't really.
No, that's good because you've had a busy summer. Let's start with coming back from Germany first. You did a residency in Germany this summer. Yeah,
I was in Leipzig for 2 months. Our school sent 4 of us there to be doing this artist residency for 2 months, and it was a cool experience.
That was your first experience doing a residency, yeah?
Yeah, well, I did a residency at my school a couple years ago, but this was the first time I was going abroad, I guess. So first time in Germany. So
did you feel a change then in how you were creating and how you were sort of, I guess, taking things in?
I'm sure being in any different environment, it was adjustment period, and then kind of taking it all in, the different culture and everything. So I don't know how much I didn't go into it with a plan of this is what's going to affect my work incredibly, but it definitely made me a lot more productive, I would say.
Yeah. Also, it made you drink beer at 10 a.m. because you were in Germany, I'm sure.
I actually didn't drink any beer.
What?
Really?
I know.
That's a wasted residency right there.
That's the weirdest thing I've ever heard from a painter.
Oh my God, what a disaster. Can you maybe describe the residency, the city? I mean, for those that haven't been.
Oh, yeah. So we were in the Spinnerei, which is a couple buildings with a lot of artist studios in them, and we were given a space to work there, and most of the time we were just trying to explore the town. It's kind of it doesn't feel like the neighborhood we're in. It feels more a small town kind of vibe, which was a really nice change of pace from New York for sure. But it was a little bit I don't know.
I can see the diplomatic.
Because it's so quiet,
I know. I was gonna say, what is coming out of it? What are you gonna say?
I gotta say this the right way.
Well, we were the loud, rambunctious Americans probably, and they're what are they doing? But it was definitely a very cool experience.
Can you imagine if it was for British? Oh my God, it'd be even louder.
With the current British arrogance that's going around, yes, I think it probably would have, and I don't think it would have been 2 months. They would have dragged it out for 4 years.
I've heard many times from artists who are have done residencies over and over again. They're in their 50s or in their late 40s. They always say it actually is good to go into residency without a huge plan, because plans change immediately when you get there, and the town is different and the people are different that you're working around. So I assume that's probably going into it with no plan is probably the best plan.
I think so. I mean, you don't want to have any preconceived notions, of a place, and I'd rather be pleasantly surprised, which I was, because I really didn't have any idea of what it was going to be like at all. So I think I don't know, I don't go into really much anything with planning, so it was good to just be, just take it all as it is rather than.
Did you see Neo Rauch? Was he around?
Yeah, his studio was actually upstairs from us.
Whoa, I was like fucking around. Really?
He's just like, yeah, walking his dog and like him with his wife, and we're like, oh, hey, how's it going?
Whoa.
He gets that a lot, probably.
He didn't, but he didn't open up. Yeah, he didn't open up his studio. You didn't like go up there and see anything.
No, I heard that he's a rather like private person.
That's what I was getting at. It's like what? Okay.
Oh,
yeah, and he probably gets that a lot.
This is the kind of juicy dirt we're after. Tell us more.
Exactly.
What else? What else did you hear about him?
we Juxtapoz spent like 12 years trying to get a feature with him. When we got it, it was like I almost started crying. I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. It's like all this work. Because he's a private guy. He doesn't do a ton of interviews, but
I mean, a lot of people come to that city for him. I mean, because his work is just everywhere, and he's just so well known. But yeah, I don't know. It was weird because I saw him at the drawing center show. And what I remember was he was wearing these like silver boots, like these alligator silver boots, and that was like the first thing my friend had told him. He's like, "Oh, you like my boots, but you didn't like my drawings?" And we were like, "No, that's not what we meant." Like,
yeah, they're not mutually exclusive things.
Exactly.
We can like both. So that was your first experience with Europe, not your first experience with Europe?
This is my second time being in Europe. So last year I went to Paris and a couple places in Italy with my family, but this is my first time kind of being there on my own. I mean, I also did go to Paris for a couple of days while I was in Germany, but I should have like traveled around more. It's just like time-wise, it wasn't really.
That's how it always works, isn't it? You always have these grand plans, especially when you get to Europe, because everything's kind of close. And then you're like, oh, I'm going to go do these things. And then you're like, I kind of got to stay here.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the biggest thing I probably regret doing. I should have just ventured out more, but just the schedule-wise and work-wise, like, it didn't happen that way.
So you have a kind of, I guess, a vagabond background. You know, you've traveled a lot in your time. Can you maybe kind of give us a sense of the places that you've stayed and how you came to be in New York?
Yeah. So I was born
in a nutshell. I mean, I don't mean we have to. Right. So day one.
I was born.
No, but it's just because I read it.
Where should
I read in the interview that you were, but I didn't get the context of it. So I read in the interview that you had gone from, hopefully I'm getting this right, from South Korea to Australia, New Zealand, Utah, and then, so maybe if you could just kind of like, for the purposes of elaborating on that little tidbit that will come out in the interview, maybe go into this a little bit more.
Yeah. I guess from the beginning, I was born in South Korea in Daegu, and then when I was about like 6 to 8 years old, I went to New Zealand, kind of to learn English, and I think my mom just wanted to like expose us to like different surroundings and cultures, and then we got back, and after a couple of years, she decided to move us all to America about like 12 years ago. So we lived in Redondo Beach in California for a year. And that was when she was trying to find a job, and then that's when she got hired in Utah. So I spent like eight years there of my.
That's like almost equally divided. Like not, you know, it's kind of like it's not like you had 3 years here and then the rest was just in Utah. There's like a good amount of time in each of these spaces.
Yeah. I think like being so like young, and I just kind of went along with whatever was happening. I wasn't quite aware of what was happening. We were just like kept on moving like from place to place, and in hindsight, it was like one of the best things that's happened to me, because I feel like I had to almost be quick to like respond to my surroundings, I guess. So.
You know, it's a funny because like usually you hear somebody be like, "Wow, it was really hard growing up. We moved around a lot. I never got to make a ton of friends in one place." But you did have some substantial time in Utah, but also the way that you said it, like it allows you to respond to surroundings a little bit quicker, or to kind of adapt in a way that's probably not like you don't get scared when you have to see something new.
Yeah. It definitely makes you like assimilate to your environment quicker.
How does that work for art, though?
I don't know. I think it was like the voyeuristic aspect kind of like bled into my work because I was always people watching and kind of gauging like how I should be reacting to certain things. And I don't know, I learned like a lot of my English and mannerisms from TV shows, so that's probably why I don't know, the way I am now, or like the way I am around people.
Do you find then when you kind of look back on that sort of very transformative period in your growing as a person, do you find that your attitude and the way that you look back on that sort of changes, and I guess how you identify with it and how it sort of speaks to your identity? The way you were describing it, you were like, okay, so you don't realize when you're doing this, you don't realize when you're in it that it's something different, it's something that's going to affect you in some way later on in life. And then now that you're a little bit older, maybe you're a little bit more settled, do you then look back on this as something different to how you felt when you were experiencing it, and how that relates to you as a person?
I think like given time with any life experience, you realize the things that you didn't quite you took a lot of things for granted, for sure. And I think because my time in Utah was very much like I was questioning why in the hell like I was in this certain place, like where I felt like very much not part of this world almost, but I just accepted it for what it was. But to be honest, like having moved to New York, which is completely the opposite, I realized if I didn't have my time there for the 8 years, I wouldn't be as grateful as I am to be in the place that I'm living in. So
as an American, like the perception, and Doug, I can't speak for you, but the perception of Utah, obviously with the center of the Mormon church and sort of kind of like a sparsely populated state, like I mean, we hit on this on the Juxtapoz interview that's about to come out in a couple days, the whole magazine. I got to send you magazines. Like Utah is a very specific place. So like what was the art culture like there? And if you're some young person who wants to do art, is there a supportive community there, or is it kind of like you got to find some friends and you really got to work it out?
I think there's like definitely small pockets. I was a bit too young to kind of fully immerse myself in the actual art community. Although like I think the mentor I met, Bruce Robertson, he runs this like figure after school program, and he's probably the reason why I like grew this like love for art. And I think if I had stayed after high school, I probably would have kind of been more in that community more so. But I was just so stubborn in getting the hell out of there and going to art school. So there's definitely like I think it's like a thriving art scene now. I haven't been back long enough to kind of experience it that much, but
yeah, that's what I've heard. I've heard Salt Lake City's kind of picking up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
For like a lot of things, not just art, but just all sorts of different kind of.
Yeah, I think it's changed a lot ever since. Yeah, I didn't live like an adult life there, so it was just in a lens of like being an angsty kid. So it didn't. I don't think I fully understand like what it would have been like.
I think if you practice art or you work in the art world, like you might never ever live an adult life.
So there's also
like, that's true.
You may never live an adult life in Utah.
There's a strong argument to be made there on that one.
Yeah.
So art was always part of your life. It wasn't something that came in later. It was just kind of intrinsically there. Or do you remember your sort of entry point, or is it just a thread that's just consistently been there?
I think I always did some form. I mean, like every little kid does drawings or makes things, and then I think like as like everywhere we move, my mother had realized like how much it meant to me, so she'd kind of find these like art classes that I could take, and I only took it like I guess seriously, or I regarded it as something I can like really delve into when I was like in high school, I think, because I really didn't know what I was going to be doing after Utah, or I didn't know it was kind of this unknown, I guess. But it was just something that I gravitate towards, and I'm frankly not good at anything else.
That was going to be my follow-up question. If you weren't doing art, what would you be doing?
Oh, I honestly have no idea. Probably, like, I want to say an accountant, but I'm awful at math. So, yeah, I don't know.
You wouldn't be an accountant if you're awful at math.
Why would you pick that?
It just seems like the...
What? It's like you could have anything. You just gone, yeah, I'll probably be a terrible accountant.
I was thinking like an independent curator, or like somebody who works like, you know, does, I don't know, like works at a creative agency. You're like, no, an accountant. Like, all right, well.
I would distance myself as far away from this scene as possible. If it's an artist or nothing.
But there's something to be said about, you know, I see some of my friends that are in like 9-to-5s, and it's like, I think I romanticize that just as much as they romanticize like the being an artist, you know, like it's almost like you can, I don't know, clock in, clock out, and there's like that sort of.
That's super interesting, because I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that. I've never heard someone say that they've romanticized. I really romanticize being able to switch off at 5 o'clock, maybe.
I mean, I don't know. It's like you have such a set schedule, and you can just go home and like you can't really turn off. Like when I leave the studio, it's not like it ever leaves me. It's constantly like on in my head. So I don't know.
So how are you with deadlines?
I'm okay. It really depends, I think. Like lately it's been a bit I'm getting like way too into my head about finishing things on time, but I actually like having some sort of structure in order to push myself to.
Obviously from this conversation, like structure's a good thing for you.
Structure. Do you find then is there like a battle between this structure and how you attack your practice, and then this idea of, you know, free expression and looking for a creative way to input into your work? Is there a kind of an ongoing conflict in this relationship, or are they quite harmonious? Do you find it easy for that kind of creative process to become part of your structure?
I think it works fairly hand in hand, whether I realize it or not. I've always been the type of person that if presented to me as like certain, I don't know, like structural like landmarks, and then I can break away from them easier, rather than if it's like too free, then it's hard for me to kind of like tailor it down to. You know what I mean? Like you kind of need to like I have to understand like how to break some of the rules rather than having free reign constantly. So it's like a constant battle in my head. Because
your work itself is like structured, yet you give yourself this looseness to sort of kind of bend figures and bend perception a little bit. So like it is interesting how the way you place out the work, how you structure how the figures are going to look, but then you kind of give them like this non-structured sort of figuration. Yeah, I guess like that kind of comes with finding these like online imagery, and it's only just like a jumping off point, and then I kind of can input my own interpretation into them, which I think everybody does when they see any sort of image. You know, like our past experiences affect the way we view anything. Like nobody is going to have this same sort of perspective on what we see. So.
When I look back on the work that I've been able to look back on, I've only been able to go back as far as I think 2017, 16. I've not been able to dig back any further. But a lot of your earlier or in this context, your earlier work, it focused around kind of like more of a single figure, and then the work that I'm seeing now is completely the opposite of this. It's like they're busy scenes. What was the trigger in the transition between this direction, this tact?
It kind of was like a gradual sort of evolution of things. I never really know what my next like body of work would look like. It happens to be it happens in groups or clusters of styles, and I think it kind of derived from when I moved here. Like just being thrust in this environment of so many people all of a sudden, it was hard not to have that influence me, even like subconsciously, into my work. So that's where all these like chaotic like group scenes came about, and just like more dynamic compositions.
What was it about these spaces that you found so particularly intriguing? What drew you to them?
I think I'm always aware of how the viewer is gonna see the work. So if I can place them in this snapshot of this like crazy scene, like I want it to be more of like immersive experience rather than you are an outsider looking, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
So
kind of Google searches, if we were to look on your computer, like what kind of Google searches do you do? Like awkward white people dancing at a corporate dinner? Like what are you looking for when you're looking for imagery? Because it's not like I look at your stuff and go like, that's stock photography. Like there's definitely like you're looking for something.
Yeah. It really depends, honestly. It can be something super simple, like people at office party or people at weird sex parties or things like that. And then I just go digging. And I feel like the more you dig, the weirder it gets. So it can be like super benign, like plain people drunk or whatever. And there's like a whole slew of archives.
And what's the line? Like you had some line in the interview we did. It's like it's the moment when things go from sort of fun and carefree to like debauchery and just like a fuck show. And fuckery, I think, might have been the word you used.
I do remember fuckery being in there.
Fuckery, I think fuckery is the word. It's a beautiful word.
God damn it.
No, it's good. It's a perfect way of describing it. And I think people relate to it because I remember like when I first saw your work, I'm like, oh yeah, this is that moment when like Doug and Evan have ruined the party. Like I know that's like everyone has had that feeling, but I like the way that you do it in a way that it's like you're not fucked up. You're actually just watching it. And that's interesting the way you describe like, well, that's kind of how I moved through life because we moved around so much. Like you got this chance to be an observer. And it feels like, do you feel like you're getting better at the practice of being an observer?
I'm not sure about better, but it tends to be that I catch myself doing that whenever I'm like out and about, I guess.
Is that what the kids call it these days?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like no matter how fucked up or how drunk or whatever you are, like even at those moments you have those like snapshots where you kind of come to yourself, or it's almost like this out of body experience where you realize like what the hell is happening around me, you know, and then you kind of go back into the wave of this like blurry mess of life. So
have you had people kind of speak to you assuming that you're the party girl? You're like, oh, you like these scenes, yeah? Oh, you're into that stuff. Have people kind of taken that impression away from you, and is that a wrong impression, or you know, you're not necessarily in these scenes?
No, the funny thing is, yeah, they do sometimes assume that I partake in these like fuckery or debauchery
Fuckery,
events.
I think it's the one we're going for.
Fuckery's perfect.
But it's, to be honest, like I don't. This is more my way of it's like an escapism. I live vicariously through these figures, really, and some people are kind of disappointed because they think I'm like going out there every weekend and taking photos at like clubs, but I'm kind of a hermit, especially of late.
Jokes on them.
But it's like they're like, it doesn't make sense then. Like, you know, you're not the. I don't know.
People want art to imitate life
ego, I guess.
Really badly. People really, really want art to imitate life, and they really, really want that storyline. Like, oh, I met Anna at a club. She was out of her mind, but she took a photo. I'm gonna be in her painting. Like, I feel like people are desperate to like have like they don't. It's not like it's disappointing, but I think it's like, oh, she's just observing the way we act. Like, I think sometimes it's a little. I don't know, not disappointing, but like, oh, okay, this is like an actual observation of my acts, as opposed to
if there's this kind of this idea, this theme of escapism coming through your work. You know, these are people at that point of kind of letting go, and you were not part of these moments, at least not that you're willing to admit, what's your form of escapism? Where do you find your outlet?
It honestly, it depends, really. I think like just, I don't know, like little interactions, I think that's like the most fruitful, like with like a small group of friends where we're just like talking shit, or and it doesn't have to be this like crazy night per se, because I realized the first year I got here, when I was doing that, it all seemed like the same sort of night whenever we would do that kind of thing, like going out all the time. And I can't really pinpoint any of those nights being like this outstanding event. It just all seemed like the same sort of, I don't know, conversations that's happening. I don't know. So I don't know if that answered your question. My form of escapism is probably just in the studio. Yeah. I mean, we're all like glued to our phones, and I think that's the way of everybody like experiencing life now. And I think this is that's kind of what I've been trying to channel with my work, where like not a lot of people are like actually doing these things, but we're looking at people that have this like curated view of what their crazy life is. But it's only just like this this just super formulated, I don't know, idea of like what they think other people want to see. So
I know you're never supposed to ask someone that you've never actually met how old they are, but I think you're our youngest guest on this.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Am I?
I think so. And I was wondering if it was young enough that there was actually maybe a generational gap between old man Evan and old man Doug over here, and just how. And maybe that's kind of that kind of comes through exactly what you said, because from what I understand, that the younger audiences now, and I'm not necessarily talking about where you are, I'm talking about 10 years younger than that. People aren't going out and enjoying clubs the way that they were enjoying clubs. They aren't enjoying gigs. They go to get the photo, and then they dip. They're out.
Yeah, exactly. You go to a fucking concert and everyone has their phone on. They're seeing the concert through their phone, and I don't know. We've gotten to that point where like we can't fully experience like what's in front of us, because it's so hard to differentiate the online versus like what is presented in front of you. And I think it's definitely interesting way that it's almost like deteriorated the way we interact with people, but it is like also one of the best things that's happened to technological like advancement. I don't know.
That's why that's interesting, because that's why I really, when you said you wanted to be an accountant, and then like looking at some of your, you didn't want to be an accountant. By the
way, that's gonna keep
yes, no, it's not.
That's no, but like,
and then some of the work that you've done that actually looks like the kind of like people at their office party who got like a little too drunk and are a little inappropriate. Like that's why like I think that work is really fascinating to me, because like those people, like that's almost like people who don't have phones and are not it's like this kind of weird, like when you do the young stuff, it's like this interesting debauchery, but when you do like the kind of older crowd images who are like really getting down at their accountant's like Christmas party, like it feels almost like like old times or something. Like it feels before we had camera phones. And I feel like we're never going to get back to that, but there's something about the people not being aware that there's a camera. It feels like we've lost that completely. And it feels like your work is sort of reminding people that like the documentation of our lives.
Yeah.
Or desperate documentation.
Desperate documentation?
Yeah, like we're desperate to like document every single moment, because for some reason, like I don't know why I have certain photos on my phone. It's almost depressing.
Yeah, I think it's like this, like our culture is like obsessed now with having to put everything out there, but at the same time we're so concerned about our privacy, but then we put our lives out there, and I realize it's happening to me, where it is like this unhealthy cycle of that's being like perpetrated through the instant gratification of like putting something out there and like having someone view it. But it's I don't know.
Is there a particular time period that you're looking for, just in relation to that and what you're talking about, how these people are like genuinely, you know, they look like they have achieved that form of escapism in some way, whether it's positive or negative. Is there a particular time period that you're trying to reference or make people feel part of within your work?
The time period wise, I would just say the now. It doesn't. I used to do a lot of like more like 40s and 30s black and white photography inspired work, and I realized it wasn't. I didn't know the reason why I was gravitating towards them besides the nostalgia factor. But I think there's something to be said about kind of a reflection on our time now. You know, so I just want it to be like a mirror of like where we are standing at this moment in time.
Where do you pull in influence from? You know, what are your influences and references while you're trying to find some kind of dialogue? Because it's not just like straight manipulation, though. Suddenly you'll be in the middle of like sort of distorting, and then a face will appear, and it kind of borders that. You know, it could go one way, but then it suddenly becomes something completely different. So I'm wondering what these other little influences are.
It depends really. Like I could like lately I got this book on a Ouija photographer, like the photographer Ouija, and he I think was one of the best like examples of like just a reflection on his time with his street photography. And I've been seeing a lot of his like distortion series work, and how if you manipulate an image just like a little bit, but it's close to reality, it's almost even scarier that way, or not scarier, but it's a bit unsettling. So like how do I balance, like teeter on that line of being able to present the real and the uncanny?
Is it your intention to make people feel unsettled when they look at your work? Just because you use that word?
Not going into it, but it seems like it just naturally comes out that way. I haven't pinpointed why. I'm not trying to deter people away, but I don't know. Like a lot of people have told me it's a bit demonic or they it's not very pleasant to look at, and I understand that it's not everybody's taste or cup of tea.
Does anyone like find humor in it as opposed to demonic?
I hope so. I mean, like there's like little Easter eggs of, I don't know, kind of it's like pointing fun, but not in like a mean way. I hope with my work, it's kind of like I'm laughing at ourselves rather than pointing fingers at anybody. But people interpret it the way they want. I don't know. When people say it's a bit too scary, I'm realizing there's a lot of actually like terrifying things happening in the world. So maybe they don't want to see something in art that is that way.
I think people, it's like we're in such a rough moment for people who have a sane brain that like I think they see the paintings and they go like, it's like the escapism we all are desperately like looking for, but like these people have gone to an even further desperate dimension, and it sort of makes people feel like, oh, that's kind of how I feel right now. Like I feel like I just, you know, I could easily drink myself or you know, put myself in that situation so much easier in these days because we're sort of desperate to knock ourselves out a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they get a little unsettled.
Do you find then that your work is being shaped by this stuff that's happening in the news and all these external factors? Is that kind of creeping in, or is it more of a personal, you know, where you are, like you described, you know, kind of you coming to New York was where the busyness kind of came from? But do you find if you take a step back that it's actually being affected, your work is being driven by, you know, the political upsets and things like that?
I think it's unavoidable to not have that effect, like to creep into the back of my mind when I'm making things. I wouldn't initially like think that the work I'm making will portray the current political climate or like how I'm feeling living a person I am in this point in time. But when I step back, it's almost like, that's what I was going through. Like that's how I'm feeling with certain things that's happening. So
in the last, let's say 6-7 months, you have a cause come to your studio and Instagram you, and people kind of go crazy. You have your work at the Hole. You have a show at Over the Influence with another young painter, Anna Benarova. Hope I pronounced that correctly, or somewhat correctly.
Benaroya.
Benaroya. I love her work. I love her. Yeah, I love her. I love her work.
One more time, Evan. Just roll it off the tongue.
Benaroya. I love her work too. Do you feel? I mean, like, this is kind of a great 2019 for you in a way. Like, is it hard now? Like, you've had some kind of really cool successes to be like, all right, I gotta get back into school and back into deadlines of the structure of a school environment, or is it actually helping you because it's preparing? Like, you're getting two preparations at the same time. Like, you're learning about exhibition life, but you're also kind of perfecting your chops in a academic environment. Like, do you think this is a really good balance for you?
Yeah, it makes me really I'm so grateful that like all the things that have happened in the past couple of months. I mean, I never would have imagined any of this would happen, to be honest with you, and it makes me like really scared almost, like and like to be able to like, how will I balance like both the last year of school and this, like, I don't know, I'm just encroaching on this art, like, whole thing called the art world, or like I don't know, like relationships with like galleries, meeting like artists that I've like always wanted to meet. It's been one of the best things, and also like I'm already like a really anxious person, so it makes me I never want to put I don't know, it's weird, I don't know how to say that. I guess I'll only find out when school starts and how I'm gonna handle both at the same time.
So what's your time period on that? You're starting your final year?
Yeah, so this will be my last year at my at New York Academy of Art for the yeah. So I'll be starting in September and then graduating in May. So yeah.
and this kind of like just these little nods, these little moments, whether it was cause or showing in a particular gallery, does that make you happy to be kind of building the game as you are within the structure, the confines of the institution, or does it make you think, fuck, I gotta get rid of this, and I just gotta get out there and get into this properly?
Oh, no, I mean, like, I feel like there's a lot to get out of school, and that's like the only thing I've known so far. Like, I haven't really I dropped out of undergrad to come to this school, so I never really had that break of knowing what it's like in the real world, I guess. So I'm gonna just take it for what it is and learn as much as I can and try to grow as much. But I don't know. We're
gonna ask you that question again in a couple of years.
Yeah, for
we're gonna get you back on this, and we're gonna ask you that same question, and are you just gonna be like, "Take me back, take me back"?
I feel like it's like the Billy Madison moment, like stay in school forever. Like it's like, yeah, don't get out.
Like, it's crazy how fast time goes by, and like I feel like the next like 8 or 9 months is gonna be like super. Like, it's insane. It's already the final year, and I don't really know what's going to happen afterwards. And like all I can do is just like focus my energy in the studio. But yeah, it's been like a kind of crazy the past.
Do you have plans to start exploring new directions, or are you settling into a space that you're kind of you want to keep exploring a little bit before you start taking too much of a different direction in your work?
I would like to just kind of like dabble here and there. It's a bit difficult with certain like deadlines. I feel like there's less room to kind of fully experiment or kind of fuck up along the way. So I'm hoping this school year will provide me that like space and I don't know, kind of like feedback and what I want to venture into. Like, I don't know what kind of work I'm going to be making next year.
That's a really interesting point about being able to fuck up, because I think that's such an important part of whatever your creative practice is. You have to have that space that allows you to take those risks. That you can say, look, I want to try this, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's a lot harder when you're sitting there with a landlord trying to take rent off you, and you're like, actually, do you know what? I can't take a risk on this direction. Do you think that then within the confines of school, you are given enough space to be able to, in your final year, to still be able to take those risks and try things that might just not work?
Yeah, I think being in school is probably the best thing for right now in my work, just because I'll have the space just to it is a place where they want you to experiment and kind of like grow as an artist, right? So I think, and being around like my peers and like faculty members that I can go for like advice or just some sort of critique is really helpful for me right now, because I don't know, you don't really get, it's harder to, I think, find that community base like when you're out there on your own for the most part. So I think that's like one of the best things I've gotten so far in school.
Yeah, I think you're in a great situation. I think it's kind of cool. You have one foot into like the exhibition life and then another foot back into like school, where you can kind of hone your chops under a certain schedule. I think it's like I think it's like going to be a good year for you. I
love how excited he is for you.
I think it's great. I'm a full proponent. I mean, I always wish I stayed in school a little bit longer. So I'm like, oh, this is great.
I'm sure I'm gonna look back and like really reminisce on the years of
That's what I'm saying.
I like this. You living vicariously through these images for these people for escapism, and Evan's now living vicariously through you. So
absolutely.
I
don't know what that is.
I mean, I'm sure I'm only gonna look back on the good times probably at school, like, because sometimes it does get to be like what can I prioritize within like such a short period of time, and yeah.
Some New York sirens.
Yeah, that's legit. We haven't just put that in as an effect. That was the real deal. You think you'll stay in New York?
Yeah, I want to, but it's if I can make that happen, I guess, after school. I don't know, it's just so hard to survive here, but I can't really imagine being anywhere else right now.
I heard it's good for the art career.
That's what they say.
I heard New York's got art scene. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, who knows? I'm planning on doing that, but we'll see what happens in the future. There's not really much set.
Just going back onto your work a little bit then, why charcoal? What's the allure? I've been always working with charcoal for like back in Utah for my mentor. Like that's kind of how he like taught us in the beginning to do figure drawing, and then I don't know, it was just something that I always found like really seductive almost. Just being such a almost like a basic tool. It's literally like burnt wood, and to be able to like push the capabilities of the medium, I think there is like something really beautiful about that. And I don't know, the feeling of it and just like the velvety texture and the amount of like depth and value structures you can get with it. I think it allows a lot of freedom that people might see it and not realize at first. Do you think it's an overlooked medium?
I think in some way, like it seems like a lot of people think it's like a means to an end. Like you just do like just the drawings and then you go into painting. But being like pretty obsessed with it for quite some time, I just want to show people like this is I don't know.
Do you
like
get
there is like so many possibilities with it.
Do you get that in school then? People being like, so okay, cool, you've done charcoal. When are you going to move into oils or something? Like that?
I was just going to ask that.
Not so much anymore. Maybe I mean, do get like comments here and there, but like more in the past. I think now they've just kind of given up on the fact that like, oh, okay, she's just too fucking stubborn. Like she's gonna be doing this for some time. So I don't know. Like I don't know if I get like pretty obsessed with something. It's hard to pull away. Like whenever I'm painting, I always miss drawing or doing anything else. So I don't know what's gonna happen. Maybe I'll become painter or like do more of that later down the road.
With like, I mean, when you just said maybe I'll become a painter, you mean like with like oils and acrylics and that kind of?
At the end of the day, isn't it kind of all the same?
I agree. Yeah. That's why I was wondering if you were going to clarify.
Yeah.
That. Okay.
I guess just the traditional way how people like categorize things. Hopefully, I'm trying to kind of slowly integrate that into like a painting way, like integrate like new mediums, but yeah, I have to like really sit down and try out different things. So.
What is the plan then? What's I guess you've got to finish this. What else do you have? Because you seem to have plenty going on. The fact that you're in school certainly doesn't indicate that you've stopped making progress or pushing for stuff outside of school. So what else are you kind of working on, and what can we be, most importantly, kind of keeping an eye out for? You can just say school, and that's okay. It's
plug
like,
yourself,
like,
damn it.
What do you mean you're just doing your final year of school? Why aren't you doing 10 shows and traveling the world as well?
My goodness.
I'm sorry.
No, it's just you seem to. No, it's like you've just said. You seem to have so much going on. So it feels to me like you don't seem like someone that's just content doing that one thing. There seems to be a whole bunch of stuff kind of going on behind the surface. Or is that just the smoke and mirrors of a social media world?
Maybe part of that, I guess. Lately, I've been trying to mount all my paper onto panels or canvases, like you can see in the back, just so I can have like a bit more freedom and like introducing like new materials and stuff like that. I have a couple of things coming up for the next month or two with like shows and fairs, so we'll see how that goes. I'm just trying to like make work that I don't know. It's hard. I've been in like a weird artistic like funk lately, so I'm kind of waiting it out. Like it's yeah. I don't know. It's like a weird hump I'm in.
When you say lately, does that mean like the last 2 weeks, or does that mean like the last like 3 months? I don't know. Time is such a weird thing these days. I don't know how people.
A hump is a hard unit to define.
Exactly.
I guess like the past ever since I got back.
Okay, that's not that bad.
So
yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just so impatient that I was just like, man, like everything I'm making right now in the studio is just like I've forgotten how to draw or like make work,
For a hump, then is it technical? Is it what's a hump? Is it just a creative? Like you're not particularly feeling the work that you're creating because it's not going in the right direction, or is it a technical thing for you? What is a creative hump? And then because for someone with so much structure, what's your way of trying to tackle with that? I guess it's kind of hard if you're in the hump to describe how you beat the hump. but existentially, how do you tackle the hump?
I usually just like how I'm not really one to like let it ruminate, and I sit back and think about what I'm actually doing. I just have to like churn it out and then hope that it resolves itself through my work. I should plan things out more, but it just I allow like the pieces to kind of tell me what I'm going through.
You flesh it out. You don't step back from it and say like, look, I got to take 2 weeks out, just not think about art and not think about my practice, and then come back to it. Or you just like, nah, I'm gonna paint my way through this.
I usually work through It's hard for me to like take long periods of break, although it's probably better for my mental health. But it's like I get more anxious, you know, like, and when I'm like taking a break, I'm almost like blaming myself, like, why am I not making in the studio? I don't know, but it's good to like pull yourself away sometimes, and my friends help a lot with that because they think I'm gonna, I don't know, implode or something.
It's such a tricky balance, that kind of, that, you know, that internal need to be wanting to do things but maintaining, you know, a solid state of mind, because when you're you know, your happy place, but also your kind of like your career is based on this idea of creative output, it creates this kind of weird relationship on how you view that process and that practice.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a strange field to be in, for sure, because people almost like rely on you just being able to like pump out like your next, I don't know, not masterpiece, but it's just like this piece that will define like your creative output. But it doesn't happen that way so much. It has to be given like a lot more time in order to like digest and like fully like let the piece tell you like what it is that you're going after. So
yeah, it gets a little complicated when you start thinking about audiences when you're in the middle of your creative process. I could see that being a little bit of like a stumbling block.
Yeah, it fucks you up, you know, like because it's almost it's hard not to think about that sometimes, about like who will like what the viewer is going to think, or like how they're gonna respond, because I feel like I want the work to be like relatable, but also not like pushing away people so much. So like taking into account, but I don't want it to like shape the way I make my work, like tell myself how it's gonna look at the end of the day.
Do you find yourself battling against that kind of like what you were saying there, you know, making something and being like, where the fuck is this gonna hang? Like, this is too distorted, too unsettling. I can't make that. Do you find yourself in that kind of that place where you're like, no, you just have to kind of be confident, get it finished, and put it out, or do you pull back and say like, nah, this needs to be refined into a more palatable composition or something?
I don't think I ever. If I was trying to make palatable work, I probably wouldn't be making the work right now. I've had people tell me I should make, I don't know, things that are not so scary, I guess. But
don't listen.
I can't control that.
Who's giving you that advice?
Awful. Weirder the better.
Yeah.
Me, like 6 months ago, I was like happiest making work, like without even thinking about that. And now, like when I'm in that place throughout that, like making that work, like I don't think about any of that. And I think that's when the best stuff comes out, when I'm not aware or conscious of outside voices.
Well, if you think about, like, let's say like Georgia O'Keeffe 75 years ago, or Francis Bacon 50 years ago, like they had creative ruts as well. They just didn't have Instagram to deal with. So it's like it's sort of a refreshing and or like just like a dark way of looking at it. Like every artist has a creative rut. It's just like a weird thing with like this extra layer of like publicity that you give your art can have, that kind of makes it a little bit complicated.
Right. I mean, it's like maddening, you know? Like,
yeah.
I mean, I think like Instagram has one of the best and the worst things for my mental health, and I think that's with like everybody, no?
It's like the worst.
It's striking that balance 100%.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
It can you can find yourself just going down that hole, like just looking at everyone else's output. You're like, damn, my stuff is trash, or you know, just. Why am I doing that, or whatever it is, the way that you just the scope of how much you can consume in that short space of time, it's definitely not healthy. Do you think, you know, in your young youthful way, as we've decided that you are, do you think you can survive as an artist without Instagram?
These days, there's plenty of artists doing it.
Yeah.
But are you asking for like myself personally.
Yeah.
Or?
Do you think you could survive as an artist without Instagram? I mean, I meant more in a sort of general, wider scope rather than you personally. But so you think it's perfectly possible?
It's possible. It's just accessibility-wise, it definitely helps because it's like reaching people that you probably could have never encountered because not a lot of people have the access or the luxury to go see art or go to be in a place where it's easily readily available. So in that way, I think it's really useful and to be able to connect with people in general. But yeah, I don't know what my life would have been like right now if I hadn't had Instagram a couple months ago. But
you'd be an accountant.
Just being.
You'd be an accountant.
I should have never said it. You know what? Maybe I'll become an accountant after school. You never know.
I'm rooting for you.
I don't believe that.
All your dreams come true.
Tell me, actually, before we go anywhere, tell us something that nobody knows about you. One thing that nobody knows about you.
Nobody knows about me?
Wow, this is good.
God, this is like such a little put on the spot.
Yeah. Well,
that's what we do here. That's what we do here on the Radio Juxtapoz podcast.
Tell us one thing that nobody knows about you.
I don't know. I'm pretty open about most things, so I feel like people would like. What would you like? Something personal, or would it be?
There's no boundaries in this question. It can be as vague or as personal.
Do you usually ask your guests?
No, this is a new one that just came out, but it might be a regular feature if it goes down well.
Yeah, it's really good.
No pressure.
No pressure.
All right, okay, so for example, I really, really, really like ABBA. And I really, really, really like the Mamma Mia movies. So, for example, for you, what would be your Mamma Mia ABBA?
I don't know.
I'm really trying to tee this up. I just embarrassed myself. Come on.
What? Why? ABBA, I think it's great. I don't know why you're ashamed of. I don't know. I can't really say off the top of my head.
You don't watch a really crappy reality TV show?
Oh, I used to do that a lot, actually. I watch a lot of YouTube, I guess. Is that a secret? I don't know. I feel like everyone does that.
What do you watch on YouTube? What's your YouTube dirty little secret?
Why are you guys so?
No, I don't mean it in what's our fetish? I don't mean it in that way. I just mean you say you watch a lot of YouTube, so I'm like, okay, well, what's your thing on YouTube?
Oh, and oh my God, this is gonna make me sound so weird. No, I can't really say.
I see. I knew we'd find something. Find something.
Why are you guys doing this?
Only thousands of people are gonna listen to this, so I think you can.
As soon as you say the words I can't really say, that makes it that's the stuff that we need to hear.
I mean, I don't know. I watch a lot of Food Network. Is that super secret? I have a weird thing about watching people cook or eat, but I don't cook at all. So
that's good material.
That's
good.
Yeah, it's not crazy.
I never said crazy.
You could have just said that 5 minutes ago. We would have been
saying, but you guys put so much pressure on it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The future of tell us something that you've never told anybody about yourself. To be decided. Listener, you decide whether or not we're going to pick this up again for the next episode.
Gosh.
I can't wait till she gets her first New York Times critical piece, and then she goes wait a minute, that was an easy question that Juxtapoz floated me.
But it's you're just thrown to me, man. Why?
Well, it was one of those things. It's like a stream of consciousness. You're not supposed to think. You're just supposed to boom.
Right. Yeah.
I said it, and Evan went, Mamma Mia.
Exactly. No, you're right. I did. I just went what's the most embarrassing thing I could say right now?
I know. thank you so much for taking some time to sit down and talk with us. More importantly, thank you for sourcing a microphone.
Yes.
That was audio.
Sounded amazing.
Audio goodness coming from my
Audio
end.
goodness.
Yeah. So, you know, yeah, look forward. By the time this goes out, the Juxtapoz interview will be out, I think. Right?
This is gonna, yeah. So this will come out on Monday, Doug, based on, I think, right?
Yep, that's the plan.
Yeah, and then we're gonna announce the fall issue on Tuesday that you are in, Anna. So it's like all kind of part of the week, which is great.
Cool. Awesome.
Cool. So
Yeah.
if you haven't, make sure you get a copy, read the interview, and yeah, we look forward to talking to you again soon. It's definitely going to happen.
Thank you so much for having me.